Callum Robinson scored for West Brom, Dan.
Yeah, he scored the first game of the season as well. The game against Bournemouth we referenced last week with Darragh O'Shea also involved. Chelsea have just gone 3-0 up here, by the way, so it looks like a pretty good goal by the celebration. But yeah, we're thin on, like, we have a section here for discussing Irish players to look out for, but
that's going to take about half a minute.
They're sort of thin on the ground in terms of the Premier League stuff anyway. I think maybe it's going to be a slightly different discussion in the Championship with the sort of volume of players we have there. But again, like, Jason Knight is injured because his manager injured him in training, which is not an ideal start to see. It's actually Chalobah who scored for Chelsea, who was the sort of surprise inclusion today. And it looks like it was a pretty special goal in terms of the reaction, the joy of the teammates around him, because he's playing on the right of the back three today, and Reece James isn't playing, and Silva's on the bench as well too. So I think he was on loan in France last season. Chalobah, that's a great
strike. Drilled it in off the post. Yeah,
he's again, they've stepped off him, Palace, and they've invited the shot, and he's scored it. But yeah, I mean, the Irish lads, we are thin on the ground in terms of, like, well, this has been a very encouraging start to the season for this person. I mean, Callum O'Dowda was one that Stephen Kenny was talking about, big style. He got injured in the first game of the season. He's always injured. The one to look out for, maybe, that looks like he's set to have a really big season, or maybe a breakthrough season, is Gavin Kilkenny, who is at Bournemouth. And Bournemouth, for a couple of reasons in pre-season, Mark Travers had started the first two games because they had an issue, and Begovic went, and they couldn't bring in a new keeper because of COVID, and then Travers is getting a chance. But Scott Parker has come in, and he's looked at Gavin Kilkenny, who strangely, look, when I saw him play for the 21s, he would have been maybe a sort of in Stephen Kenny's front four, almost on the right of the front four, but basically at Bournemouth, he's viewed more as a deep line playmaker, playing in front of the back four. He's not a big lad at all by any stretch of the imagination. He's almost sort of Josh Cullen's size and not dissimilar in terms of style. But Scott Parker, it just goes to show how, for young players, like, a manager can be everything for you. Scott Parker has come in, and from pre-season, he's decided, yes, the way he sort of gets the ball, his range of pass, and he gets the play moving, he's going to play for Bournemouth, who are promotion contenders. So you sort of wonder, is he just out of nowhere suddenly going to enter the Irish discussion big time? Because he is one that it appears he's a breakthrough player. Like, at a Premier League level, Nathan Collins is the one. You mentioned him earlier, JD. Who?
What are his attributes?
Well,
people who haven't seen.
Yeah, so they've paid 14 million for Nathan Collins from Stoke, and now Nathan Collins is I think he's 6'4", 6'5". He's an imposing figure, but I'm doing a piece on him. It's going to be maybe in our paper next weekend, but I've been speaking to people who worked with him all the way up, various coaches, and everyone who sees Nathan Collins for the first time, they think, well, this guy is a giant. Even at 13, 14, he was a giant. But what they say about him is that leads to you almost being pigeonholed as, well, he's a big lad, he's just going to head it and kick it. But actually, he's technically very good, and he's also regarded as having a really good attitude, willingness to learn. He was in the same Dublin and District Schoolboys League team at under 14 level as Jason Knight, and also Dawson Devoy at Bows. That was Stephen Rice was their coach, who's now joined the Ireland staff, but he would have coached that team. And Collins and Knight in particular had great attitudes, and they have a lot of the raw materials, maybe physically or energy wise, in the sense of Knight, or power and presence in the sense of Collins, but they have a lot of the attributes to go with it. I think the one slight question mark that people are raising at a Premier League level is that he's not hugely quick, maybe over like 5 yards. He's not rapid, but actually I've spoke to people about that, and they say, well, just don't underestimate him on that regard either. But the plan seems to be, I mean, Tarkowski has scored today, and he's in the last year of his contract at Burnley, and there was a feeling he might be sold, but it looks like maybe he might stay for that last year. So it's Ben Mee and Tarkowski there, and Collins is the third choice, and that maybe this season might be a sort of a bridging season for him. But they really like him. There was bigger clubs looking at him, but I think they made the decision to go to Burnley because Sean Dyche has wanted him for a long time, and it's a natural step. But I think he's 20. I think Nathan Collins now, his dad Dave was one of the top players of his generation. He was at Liverpool when they won the league in 1990 as a young player that was around the squad, and his career was ruined by injuries. But Nathan, it looks like, has a really good chance of going all the way.
Tim Clancy's just messaged in to say look out for Luke McNally, who's obviously of that sort of centre back. We're certainly
Tim Clancy, the draw the manager, to be clear, not just someone you're on about.
Yeah, so he would have had him on loan from Pats, and
he's playing today, for Oxford. They're 2-1 up against Charlton,
He's definitely, if you're kind of one of the left field ones to look out for, I thought he was just so good at League of Ireland level. He's really, really quick, tall. Like, I was at a game, I think, where he even got 2 or 3 goals for Drogheda, just kind of thrown up front. But he's a proper sort of marriage of the old school centre half and the modern player who's comfortable enough with the ball but very quick. Omoba Badele as well, obviously, he's just turned 19. We're not badly stocked in terms of these young centre backs coming through, and Kieran Clark is obviously playing regularly. Good to see Duffy starting today. Obviously, it's one of our better positions, that and goalkeeping.
Yeah,
but it'll be interesting to see. Like Omoba Badele, for what he's done, like, I honestly know, I haven't seen him play, but at 18 years of age to be playing at that level is quite astounding, and I know he's really highly rated in the underage setup in Ireland. So I think it's important that players are playing anyway. Like, even if you're playing championship level, championship's a very high standard. It's important that our players are playing, because that is a question mark for a lot of them.
Yeah, I think Omoba Badele, there's a slight injury doubt about him today. We'll probably get the team news before we go off, but he got his chance last season through injuries, and he played all the way through to the end of the season. And I think, like, Norwich has won with Adam Ida as well. There's sort of speculation, would he go, or what the story was with him, and they are probably, Norwich could be a good news story for us, but it's sort of a reflection of where we are in a way that League One is becoming a little bit more relevant for us this year. You mentioned Luke McNally, there's also Mark Sykes at Oxford as well too. Gavin Bazunu is back in the Portsmouth team today. He had a little setback in pre-season, but he is their first choice this season, and he's involved. And Troy Parrott is the other one at MK Dons, who has just scored, actually, as I speak. So they're playing Sunderland at home today. They are 2-1 down, but Troy Parrott, it took him a long time to score last season.
That's fantastic, first game of the season.
And MK Dons, they've gone for sort of a left field appointment, because they were looking at Stephen Bradley at Shamrock Rovers, but they've gone for a guy whose name escapes me, who's come from Belgium. They're a real possession-based team who seem to have an idea of how they want to play, and I think Troy Parrott is going to get a lot of chances there this season. But I think there was a time in recent memories where Irish managers would have said, maybe League One, we're not so sure about that, but there's actually a lot more happening in League One this year that I think is going to be relevant to the international team. Daryl Horgan is arguably been the most consistent player under Stephen Kenny so far. He's at Wickham in League One as well too. So
Liam Manning is the manager.
Liam Manning, yeah, sorry, he came from Lommel, I think.
Yeah, McGeady is playing for Sunderland as well today.
Yeah, McGeady had a great season last year. Now, ideally, we wouldn't be having a massive discussion about players in League One, but that is sort of where we are right now.
Yeah, I'm just fascinated about this because Roy Keane turned 50 this week, and you think back of the golden days when you Roy Keane, Dennis Irwin, Shay Given, Robbie Keane, Damien Duff. And I was looking at this because in my mind I'm resetting ahead of the new season, and I'm kind of thinking to myself, how can we need to be completely realistic about what Stephen Kenny can achieve as Republic of Ireland manager given the absence of Premier talent? Or is it the case to a degree that the Premier League is so much better now that actually Championship players now would have been playing in the Premier League 20 years ago?
It's a much more globalised league, and it's I think Kenny himself has made this point. It's not that necessarily the Irish standard has regressed. It's that the Premier League, which was primarily, back in the day, early 90s or whatever, was primarily British or Irish players, simply isn't now. If you read Dan's piece today, it doesn't take long to go through the players that are Irish with any relevance to the Premier League. Brexit's obviously going to change that a bit, but it's very hard for Irish. And even if a League of Ireland player goes over to the Championship or whatever, invariably it's very, very tough for him, and it's hard to make that step up because the Championship's one of the best supported leagues in the world, and then the Premier League's another level altogether.
Well, the thing about it is, for example, the Dog played Vitesse Arnhem on Thursday, and Vitesse are from the Eredivisie in Holland. That's the 7th best league in Europe by the UEFA rankings. Yet there's absolutely no shadow of a doubt that a player given with the exception maybe of Ajax at the top of it, or maybe Feyenoord or PSV, but players will earn much more money playing in the Championship and probably League One than they would in the Eredivisie, and that's just a fact. I think wage bill wise, you'll have 4 or 5 good teams in that league, but then you go down the levels and there'd be very modest money being paid out, and that's, I think, that to get to your point, JD, that, yeah, like you can look back and sort of be misty-eyed about the early days of the Premier League, where you had 3 or 4 at Villa, and when they were challenging, and you could pick a team from the top half of the table, and you nearly had Irish players around that time who were Premier League for their whole career, but didn't necessarily get a huge amount of caps. Like, I think, wasn't it Stephen Kelly makes the point that he didn't get a cap for years because there was Stephen Carr and Finnan and stuff, and that was into the 2000s. But I think now to forge a career in the Championship is an achievement. Like, it's a real big thing to do. Like, Daryl Lennon is someone who's what, 25, 26 now. Daryl Lennon is the captain of Blackburn and has had a really successful career. And there will be guys in the Championship that I'm not saying about Dara, but others who, a successful career in the Championship now, financially and stuff, would be equivalent to a Premier League career 10, 15 years ago. And we've even seen that with someone like Conor Ronan now, who is exceptional in the Championship. Went up with Aston Villa. It doesn't seem to have happened for him, and maybe he has to drop down, but it's still more than good enough to play at international level. I think actually we have such an obsession in this country with the English football ladder that we grade players by Premier League and Championship, and we look at them and we put them in that category, in that box, and yet we'll play against international sides with players from all sorts of leagues around Europe. And they work. So you can't give Stephen Kenny a complete pass on that, but certainly he's not dealing with a great hand either, compared even to some of the more recent managers. That's for sure.
I wonder where Robbie Brady will end up.
Yeah, it's really weird to be out of a club at this stage. For a player of his ability, what is he, 30 odd?
No, he's just about to turn 30. He's 1992. So there's a group of them that were born in January 92. So it's Brady, Hendrick, Matt Doherty and Shane Duffy were all born in the same month. So they'll all be 30 next January, yeah.
That's amazing. It's amazing. Like, centre midfield is just such a major problem for us, JD.
Well, strikers, though, is even worse.
Strikers as well, but like, where are the centre midfielders that are even playing regular football? I mean,
Brown is one. Like Malumbi, like the Graham Potter is speaking again about Malumbi going out on loan. Again, someone we hoped would make that Premier League breakthrough, but it appears that in the short term, at least, the Championship is going to be his environment. I think you're right. Alan Brown is one. Josh Cullen, as we mentioned, is playing in Anderlecht now, and playing regularly, albeit in a different league. And people will maybe try and equate where does that stand levels wise. But I mean, as you come into September and you're going through a list. I mean, Jeff Hendrick again is more squad player at Newcastle than starter. So you are looking at a short list of players who are going to be arriving in, having played, a full pre-season and a full 3-4 games to start it.
Going to hand it to Watford, 3-0 up now against Aston Villa. Cucho with the third goal at Vicarage Road. In the Premier League, it's Leicester 1, Wolves 0, Everton 1, Southampton 1, Richarlison equalising for Everton, Chelsea 3, Crystal Palace 0, Burnley 1, Brighton 0, Man United 5, Leeds 1. Just on strikers, Aaron Connolly, I think he needs to have a good season.
He's not even in the squad today for Brighton, and that's a worry. I think like Aaron Connolly had a massive breakthrough and hit the big time very quickly. He went from almost playing at that Premier League 2 level, going on loan to Luton and being injured and not doing a huge amount, not even being in Ireland underage squads for various reasons, to scoring that brace against Spurs and all of a sudden being the answer to our problems. And I think he's possibly found a transition to maybe just that scrutiny and stardom. I don't know if it's almost sat comfortably with him. There just seems to be one step forward, 2 steps back with him sometimes. I think he's got loads of ability, and Graham Potter has given him a lot of chances, but it just doesn't seem right there at the moment. There seems to be some question marks over where he really stands in their plans, and maybe more. I'm hoping it's like a minor injury today or something that he's not on the squad, but I think he wasn't away at the Euros. It's not as if he's had a really arduous summer in a way that you would hope someone like him is coming back into pre-season and hitting the ground running and getting themselves into that squad on the opening day, and the fact he's not in it. Whereas, for example, Shane Duffy is, which suggests that he's come back with a good attitude. I'm not sure what's happened with Connolly, but he needs to have a good season. I'm not so convinced that he'll have one, but I think Stephen Kenny has a lot of faith in him, a lot of time for him, but if he's not playing for Brighton, there's very little he can do.
Adam Ida's the more interesting one, I think, JD. That you know, he's 20 now. It's you know, he hasn't looked up to the level of playing at that level yet. Nor for Ireland, I think he's been tasked with some, you know, pretty difficult jobs up there, up top, and you know, he's a very, very quick player who wouldn't necessarily be the archetype to kind of, you know, hold up the ball back to goal type.
Well, the Fark was saying that. He was saying that he's a natural goal scorer, but he just needs to work on other aspects of his game.
But he's physically and all that, in terms of, like, he should be sort of, if not peaking, he should be hitting a level now where this is a big season for him. I'm not sure about Connolly, to be honest. I think he's, unlike Ida, Connolly's had an awful lot of chances, and I think his own hold-up play and link-up play for Ireland has been very, very poor at times. But Ida, for the 21s, was a massive improver in the Stephen Kenny reign. From the tournament in Toulon to the subsequent qualification tournament, he was really, really good. And anyone, you know, watching those games against Sweden and Italy or whatever, where he and Troy Parrott were just outstanding against really high caliber sides, you know, you got very excited. And I think we probably maybe reached the peak of this golden generation then, and the reality has been that, like, hardly any of these players have made an impact since. And you know, Troy Parrott today scoring at that level, that's where we're at. But I think Ida, it has to be a big campaign for him, and I think the manager will give him a chance.
It is that, I mean, Obafemi, it looks like, might be on the move from Southampton as well too, and they were the four strikers: Parrott, Connolly, Ida and Obafemi, and yet they were the sort of the flag bearers of that generation. And now we're more so talking about Darragh O'Shea's a small bit older, but we're talking about O'Shea and Jason Knight, and it's the dangerous game. Like, it could be someone like Gavin Kilkenny now who emerges, who was completely in the shadow of some of those lads. I mean, there's so much can happen in that sort of 18 to 23 age bracket, and you end up with a totally different hierarchy to maybe what you expected.
What about Conor Ronan then?
Yeah, like, I mean, Ronan is sort of, again, he's gone in that sort of loan cycle, and he's stalled a small bit. He was at Grasshoppers last year, wasn't it? He was in Switzerland last year, in the second division. I don't know. I'm not sure. Like, I'm not sure if he's fully on the radar as yet, in the sense of being he's going to be in an Ireland squad soon. I don't think so.
Yeah, Adam Ida's on the bench for Norwich.
Oh, that's okay.
Liverpool.
And did Omobedi?
No, he hasn't made it. So that's a 5:30 kick-off at Carrow Road. Just going to go through the Liverpool team now, just a second. Yeah, Alisson in goal. Virgil van Dijk is back in the centre-back with Alexander-Arnold, Matip, Tsimikas, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Milner, Keita, Salah, Jota and Mane. So that's the Liverpool starting 11 for the game at Carrow Road. Interesting to see Harvey Elliott is on the bench, Caoimhin Kelleher is on the bench. If and we don't want this to happen, but if Alisson does get injured, Kelleher, I think, is clearly seen as the number 2 there now. He's signed a new long-term deal, and he could be actually our biggest player in the next while.
100%. I mean, Kelleher is one injury away. I sort of mentioned this in the piece today, from becoming the highest profile Irish player. And like, between Kelleher and Bazunu, like, we are going to have a million debates about these lads over the next period of time. And actually, then you have, you know, Mark Travers playing at Bournemouth. I think James Talbot actually is playing for Bows now, is an excellent keeper. And another time we'd having a big debate about should he be in an Ireland squad, and yet it's harder to have that when you have that quality of young keeper coming through. But you have two guys going completely different routes at massive clubs. I think Bazunu was like really rated at City, but he's going to Portsmouth. He's going to play a full season this season in front of a proper fan base and a great club. And Kelleher might play 6-8 games, but does your 6-8 games for Liverpool, if he gets dropped in for Champions League games and League Cup games and Cup games, and being around some of the best players in the world every day, does that edge it for you? I mean, it's a good debate to have. We'd love to have it in every position, but I think he is number 2, John. There's no doubt about that.